So, something annoying just happened that I will start this video out with. Um, I was driving my horse through the park, and there was another horse carriage in front of me, and the area that we're approaching is a weird kind of area in the park where the Central Park Conservancy did something really silly and weird. When you enter the park on 7th Avenue, there's like a hill at Central Park South, and on the left side of that hill, the right side is where the horse carriage stand was moved to, which is so silly. It's on a hill, not great for the horses. So on the left side, they painted like a jogging lane, a walking lane for people, for pedestrians, right next to the sidewalk. And so it has people walk down this hill on the left side. When we get to the bottom of the hill, it turns into the park, and there's another hill there. And when they make this right turn into the park, the pedestrian lane disappears and turns into the street with the bike lanes that, you know, the carriages and the pedicabs and the cars and everybody is on. Makes absolutely no sense. The jogging lane for the park ends up being on the left, a little bit further in, but it just leads them right into a street. So people always end up walking in the street right there until they get to the crosswalk where they see there's like a traffic signal, which the Conservancy is taking down. And so it just guides people to walk into the street. So constantly we've got people walking next to our horses in the street there when it's not really a good place for them to be. Anyway, so this particular road is one lane, where most of the park is these two lanes that they turn into two bike lanes. And it gets a little narrow at the bottom, and there was a truck parked at the narrow bottom, I guess to deliver ice or supplies or something, one of the hot dog stands. So the carriage in front of me went to the left of the truck, which is essentially the jogging lane, and I followed him there because we have to pass the truck that's parked. And when he turned back towards the right lane, right in front of the truck, my horse was walking a lot faster, and my horse's head was getting pushed up against the back of his carriage. So rather than keeping my horse there, I did the more safe thing, and I decided to pass his horse since my horse is walking faster, which means I have to stay in that left lane for a couple more seconds to go in front of his carriage, and then we will both be on the right side, lined up one by one. So there is a brief moment when you are passing something that two of you are side by side. Some lady jogging started screaming at me that I'm forcing bicycles to go into the jogging lane. First of all, there is no reason that a bicyclist can't stay behind the carriages until we move back over. They are not being forced anywhere. If something was parked there, standing, not moving, also bicyclists are supposed to yield to horses anyway, but if something was standing there, I could understand them trying to get around it, but we are a moving thing. Everybody can just stay in line and move around until there's space to go where they need to go, rather than going into the jogging lane. But she didn't think to yell at the bicyclist. She didn't yell at the truck that was parked there, causing this whole thing to happen. So she tried to yell at me. So after we passed around, did you guys want to ride? Did you want a tour? So people are checking out our carriages. They say they're just admiring the pretty horses. So this lady had made a fuss about it. And then some other lady started screaming, "It's a bike lane." So the other horse carriage driver shouts back, "Yes, everything's a bike lane." I'm like, what? So I started trying to explain to her that if you wait just 3 seconds, my horse is going to be in front of the other horse. I need to pass. You're allowed to pass each other. There is no more like passing lane or anything. This is what happens with this terrible Central Park Conservancy park redesign. So it was just annoying. And it happens all the time now because this is a terrible design and we have to deal with all these kinds of annoying things. Anyway, what else came up? There was a girl, day before yesterday. And I was standing by my horse, like maybe like a little bit of space away from him. And I saw her making her way between like that gap between me and the horse, and she like just ignored it, didn't acknowledge that I was there. I see her approaching my horse, which I hate, because if you want to pet my horse or something, you're supposed to ask me. You don't know if my horse is aggressive. You don't like know if I want you petting my horse or whatever. It's my horse. So I see her walking her way towards it, I could tell by her face all sneering that, like, she was just, like, one of these nutcases that, like, has been misled by all the bullshit out there. So I offered her a carriage ride. I said, do you want to ride? Like, is that why you're approaching my horse and ignoring me? And she's like, no. And she says, is this your horse? I said, yes. And she said, no, I would never take a ride. What is this? Oh, sorry, I'm just getting notifications. She's like, I would never take a ride. And, it's our sweeper dude coming along. He helps us sweep up the park of any manure that gets spilled. And so, keep getting sidetracked here in this story. So, she says, I was going to protest you guys. And then she reaches her hand out to touch my horse's nose. So I took his head and turned him away from her. And I said, then you can't pet my horse. And she goes, fine, fuck you. And she storms off. So she turns around and I said, you can't benefit from him when you're trying to kick him out of his home, when you're trying to push him out of here, and I'm going to let you benefit from him and pet him? Next time I'm going to wait till we've had a few different petitions over time about keeping the horse carriages here and stopping the carriage ban bill. Next time I'd be like, with one of those, oh yeah, you can pet him just right after you sign this petition to keep the horses here. So yeah, it's really annoying when people try to do that. It's like, no. You gotta be a nice person that likes horses, that wants horses here to pet my horse. Otherwise, not letting, you enjoy him, not sharing him with you. I was just like, you don't want to get educated about it? You just want to stick with this, like, stupid opinion you have that's, like, obviously not based on any facts and not just, like, have the smart opinion and, want to do something that's actually good for our horses. So there's that. It's probably going to be a long video. I just realized we're already 7 minutes in. But that's fine. So what else I wanted to cover? Yesterday, Community Board 7, one of the, I think they were the east side, no, they were the west side Community Board. There's a couple around the park. They had a meeting, and I didn't really realize what this meeting was, that it was actually on the subject of carriage horses, or I would have gone, but I just signed in on Zoom. Not sure if I didn't get my Zoom working properly or I was just ignored, but I did not get to speak. I submitted a couple of typed out questions, and for some reason, all of these like animal rights nutty people got to speak, but none of the pro carriage horse people that were there on Zoom. So they will be having another one of these meetings, and I guess I will have to make an appearance then, or submit some kind of debunking all the crazy stuff they say. So one carriage driver went to represent everybody and set the story straight, and 2 people from the Central Park Conservancy who were also at the Central Park Precinct community meeting I spoke about, and who I have spoken with, and in addition to the community board people, Steve Nislik, who is the CEO and founder of New York Class, and his executive director Adita Brownkrant were there. And at the beginning of the meeting, they were pretty friendly with Central Park Conservancy, knew each other, and I think we're piecing together where the money came from. I went to the Central Park Conservancy. That was such a big donation that bought the park. It's these, real estate developer, animal rights hybrid groups that are funding this. They couldn't buy the mayor, couldn't buy city council, couldn't convince the Central Park Conservancy to allow their electric cars in the park to replace the horses, wouldn't let them allow their electric carriages in the park to replace the horses. So they thought, well, let's try getting the DOT, Department of Transportation, to, hurt this industry, moving them into the park, can't buy them. They've spent millions and millions of dollars, you can't buy the public. What are we gonna do next? We bought Central Park Conservancy. At the expense of everyone. Over 40 million people in the park every year use this park. Now, one of the things the Conservancy had mentioned was that they thought that the horse shoes were responsible. There's a scout here. It was responsible for wearing away the paint of the bike lanes and the carriage drives. And one person at the community board meeting was just like, why don't you use a different paint then? Like, why would you just get rid of the horses? It's not just them that wear it away. It's also, you know, the trucks that come through and the bikes and people walking and all that. So there was that intelligent idea. I kind of called them out on that. They were like, well, the Department of Transportation decides the paint. So tell the Department of Transportation. She was like, you can use inlays, you could do this. Yeah, there are other options. That's one solution. Didn't think of that solution, no. Some of the community board meeting had called them out on some of this hypocrisy. They were like, well, what about the police horses? They've got the same shoes. They work in the same streets. They work in all of that kind of stuff. And they were like, well, they don't pull carriages, which is a New York class talking point, because what does that have to do with anything? If you're saying that it's because of certain incidents, you know, within the park, carriage or not, you were talking about having a horse in the park being the issue. So, what they had said, you know, I think it seems like the community board can see through it. They've pretty much always been on the side of the carriage horses. I think they said 34 people were in favor of keeping the horses here the last 1 or 2 times. They did a vote every couple years, and 3 were against it, who are actually members of the New York class, so no surprise. But you've got some new members that still have to be educated and everything. And it was frustrating for me to listen to, because it was like my stalker, these like girls that I've spoken about on here who harass carriage drivers for their TikTok videos were on there. And I could recognize all their names of like, these are the people just like come and harass us every day that don't know anything about horses. And they tried to give this perception that this is the general public and the general community that's speaking out, that's, you know, not a fan. I'm like, no, these are animal rights extremists with an agenda who do not know anything about horses, who do not know what they're talking about when they make, you know, false claims about us, and who are claiming carriage drivers are mean to them. It's like, well, if you came out here and you harassed them and you pushed them to a breaking point, why would anybody like be surprised that they responded to you not nicely? So there's a lot of that. But again, I don't think everyone could see through it. At one point they did bring up the real estate thing. Like, this head of my class, this is a real estate guy, and the carriages stables are in prime real estate, and like things that has been exposed in the news many times over. No one is buying these like runaway horse things was so dangerous that anything is you have the same amount of people coming to Central Park ish, and you know, 30 to 40 million every year or whatever, for a bunch of years now, and number of horses hasn't changed. There were 0 incidents like this year after year after year after year after year, and now you're just naming a couple that happen now. No one's buying this. You know, it was just kind of, it's pretty revealing to people that, you know, it doesn't matter what people think about the park and the park drives and preserving history and all these things that, you know, Central Park Conservancy was always supposed to be preserving. It's really just come down to, like, people with money are gonna fund this and they want what they want. So I think, you know, that said a lot, and that was interesting. It's frustrating to hear all the stupid things said, and that, you know, the Central Park Conservancy, who's supposed to be neutral and was helping us get things done, just like is repeating New York class talking points now, like not actually using any kind of like logical thought or any, like, you know, consideration about people who do actually use these drives all the time, trying to come up with solutions for what they claim are problems. You know, that all said a lot. So that is something still going on here that we are still fighting. You had a city council member come on there, and Eric Botcher, who, you know, we've protested because he refuses to come to the stables or actually learn about our industry and just keeps repeating the same lies. So we had him come out. I mean, they had him come out on the Zoom call, and he it's the same as always, but they were asking him, like, well, what are these people going to do to, you know, earn a living and pay their bills? And he's just kind of like, well, we'll figure that out later. And I had submitted a question that got ignored, but I was like, you know, they're talking about setting up these job retraining programs to find us a new field to work in. Like, I'm not allowed to choose my own field. I did work in an office world for a long time. I did make better money. I made the choice to leave because I'm an equestrian. I made the choice to work with horses. I have lived in New York my entire life. I have no desire to move. I have no desire to be separated from my horses. This is my horse. I bought that horse. Me, my money. Made money, bought the horse. Brought him here with me. Because I want to live here. I want to work with him. That's my career path. That's, you know, my hobby. That's my lifestyle. I want to live here, work with my horse, as many have for over 100 years. And many carriage drivers pass down medallions within, you know, carriage medallions within their family, and their children grow up to drive horses. We want to protect this and save this for future generations. So who are you to be like, I'm going to find you a new job, a new field to work in? I've made my choice. I do not want to be separated from my horse. I want to work with my horse. I want to live in the city that I live in with my horse, that my horse lives in. So where am I going to go? What am I supposed to do if this went through? No answer for me. So I think, you know, at the end of the day, everyone's going to do the right thing, but it's going to take some work to get there because you've got some big money behind, you know, what's going on. They don't care about all the park users. You know, they kept saying, oh, it's just 68 carriages, it's just 68 small businesses, it's just No, it's all the thousands of people who come to the park every year, all the people who enjoy seeing the carriage horses and taking carriage rides and who care for them. It's a lot of people. The park, the landscape was supposed to be animated by the horse carriages even when you weren't in one. There was Frederick Law Olmsted's whole design. There was a whole thing of the mission of the park. The park was supposed to be saving that. And then some flat-out lies just started happening. Central Park Conservancy, Dave started claiming that the park drives hadn't been redone since, like, I don't know if he said the 80s or something, like a really long time. It was just a couple of years ago they were redone. We were here. It disrupted business for us during the busy season. So we remember that. And it was just weird. They were also called on the fact that they're like, why did you spend $5 million on repaving the park? And you're claiming that the horses in one little section, because some paint was rubbed off, that's $5 million in damage. There's a lot that, you know, becomes blatant corruption when you start asking questions that have no answers. And that's sad for everybody, and will be something we'll keep fighting.